Have you ever noticed that some people retire with millions and still live in fear, and then there are others with far less money who somehow sleep peacefully at night? That really made me stop and think, because most people spend their whole lives chasing money, but very few people ever learn how to feel safe with it. And when you get older, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. You start asking different questions. Will my savings last? What happens if my health changes? Did I work too hard for a life I never really enjoyed? Why do some retirees seem calm while others stay anxious no matter how much they have? You know, many retirees struggle with this quietly, not because they failed in life, but because nobody ever taught them the emotional side of money. Most people were taught how to earn, how to budget, how to save. But almost nobody teaches you how to think about money. And honestly, that may be the most important part of all. That's why I decided to read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I expected another financial book full of charts, investing jargon, and complicated strategies. But that's not what I found. This book felt different. It felt human. It talked about fear, ego, patience, contentment, greed, happiness, and the quiet emotional battles people carry around money for their entire lives. And the more I read it, the more I realized this book may actually be more important for retirees than for young people, because after 60, money is no longer just about building wealth. It becomes about protecting your peace. And there's a big difference between those two things. So in this video, I want to sit down with you like an old friend over coffee and share the 7 biggest lessons I took from this book, especially the lessons that matter later in life. Some of these lessons may comfort you, some may challenge you, and 1 or 2 of them may completely change the way you think about retirement. Why this book matters for retirees. You know what I've learned? A lot of retirement advice focuses only on numbers. How much do you need saved? What's your withdrawal rate? What stocks should you buy? Now, don't get me wrong, those things matter, but retirement is emotional, very emotional, because once the working years slow down, you begin facing things that spreadsheets can't solve. Loneliness, identity loss, fear of becoming dependent on others, watching your health change, watching friends disappear, wondering if you still matter, and at the same time, you're trying not to run out of money. That's a heavy combination. This book understands something many financial experts miss. Money decisions are rarely logical. They're emotional. 2 people can earn the same amount, save the same amount, retire at the same age, and one lives peacefully while the other stays anxious every single day. Why? Because of psychology, because of habits, because of mindset, because of expectations. I wish more people understood this before retirement. You see, retirees often believe financial peace comes from having enough. But this book explains something powerful. Enough is not only a number, it's also a mindset. And many people never reach it. That's why you see wealthy people still stressed, still comparing, still chasing more. Meanwhile, some older couples with modest pensions sit on their porch drinking coffee together, completely content with life. That's wisdom. This book also matters because retirement can expose unhealthy money habits you carried for decades. Some people retire and suddenly realize, I spent my whole life saving, but never learned how to enjoy life. Others realize I spent everything trying to impress people who were never paying attention to me in the first place. And some people discover something painful. Without work, they don't know who they are anymore. This book quietly speaks to all of those struggles, not in a harsh way, in a thoughtful way, a human way. What this book is really about at its core, The Psychology of Money, is not really a book about money. It's a book about human behavior. That's the real heart of it. Morgan Housel keeps showing how people make financial decisions based on emotion, fear, pride, insecurity, childhood experiences, social pressure, and personal history, not pure intelligence. And honestly, once you reach retirement age, you realize how true that is. The smartest person in the room doesn't always end up happiest. Sometimes the calmest person does. The book shares story after story about investors, workers, millionaires, ordinary families, business owners, and everyday people. But the deeper lesson underneath all those stories is this: doing well with money has less to do with how smart you are and more to do with how you behave. That's powerful, because many older adults carry shame around money. Some feel they should have saved more. Others regret bad investments. Some trusted the wrong people. Some spent too much helping adult children. Some worked their whole lives and still feel financially insecure. This book doesn't shame people. Instead, it explains that life is complicated. Luck matters, timing matters, emotions matter. And most people are simply trying to survive while making imperfect decisions. There was also another message throughout the book that stayed with me. True wealth is often invisible. Most people think wealth looks like expensive cars, giant homes, luxury watches, designer clothes. But real wealth is freedom. Freedom to rest, freedom to say no, freedom to spend time with family, freedom to walk away from stress, freedom to sleep peacefully at night. And for retirees, that lesson may be more important than any investment strategy. The biggest lessons I learned from this book lesson has one: enough might be the most important financial word in retirement. This may have been the most powerful lesson in the entire book for me, the idea of enough, because many people spend their entire lives moving the goalpost. They save a little, then want more. They buy a house, then want a bigger one. They retire comfortably, but still keep worrying because somebody else has more. And the dangerous part is this: if you never learn what enough looks like for you, peace will always stay out of reach. Be honest with yourself. How many people do we know who work far beyond exhaustion, not because they needed more, but because they couldn't stop chasing more? I've seen retirees with decent pensions and paid off homes still living in constant fear because their minds never learned contentment. And I've also seen older couples with simple lives who seem deeply fulfilled, not because they had everything, but because they appreciated what they already had. This lesson matters deeply after retirement because your energy changes, your priorities change, your health changes. At some point, more money stops improving life the way peace does. And this part really made me stop and think. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. That's wisdom right there. Lesson has two: wealth is what you don't see. This lesson hit me hard because society trains people to admire visible success, big homes, fancy cars, luxury lifestyles. But the book explains something most people don't realize until later in life. Many wealthy-looking people are deeply financially fragile, and many truly wealthy people look completely ordinary. Why? Because real wealth is hidden. It's the money you didn't spend. It's the stress you avoided. It's the emergency fund nobody sees. It's the ability to survive hard times quietly. This matters enormously for retirees, especially today when social media constantly pressures people to compare lifestyles. You see, retirees taking expensive vacations online, buying luxury RVs, moving into giant homes, and suddenly people start feeling behind. But appearances can lie. A retired person quietly living below their means may actually be freer than someone spending heavily to maintain an image. I remember an older man in my neighborhood years ago. Simple clothes, old car, quiet lifestyle. Most people overlooked him. Then after he passed away, people discovered he had quietly built substantial savings and donated generously to charities for years. He never needed attention. That's a different kind of richness. The older I get, the more I admire invisible wealth, peaceful wealth, unimpressive wealth, stable wealth, because retirement is not a performance. It's your life. Lesson has 3, compounding works in relationships, health, and happiness. 2, most people hear the word compound and immediately think about investing. But this book made me realize something deeper. Life compounds, everything compounds. Your habits, your stress, your kindness, your health choices, your relationships, your mindset. Small decisions repeated over decades shape your entire retirement experience. Your dad is watching this right now. The walks you take, the friendships you maintain, the bitterness you hold on to, the sleep you ignore, the gratitude you practice, all of it compounds over time, and retirement exposes the results. Some people reach retirement with financial savings, but emotional bankruptcy, no hobbies, no close friendships, no purpose, no peace. Others retire with modest money, but rich lives filled with connection, meaning, and calmness. That didn't happen overnight. It compounded. This lesson reminded me that retirement preparation is not just financial preparation, it's emotional preparation too. I wish more people talked about that. Lesson has 4. Freedom is the highest form of wealth. This may be the most beautiful idea in the entire book. The highest dividend money pays is freedom. Not status, not applause, freedom. And honestly, isn't that what most people truly wanted all along? Not necessarily yachts or luxury watches, just freedom. Freedom from panic, freedom from toxic bosses, freedom from debt, freedom to rest, freedom to spend time with grandchildren, freedom to wake up slowly without rushing. Many retirees finally realize this later in life. They look back and think, I spent decades chasing things I didn't even truly care about. And sadly, some people reach retirement age financially successful, but emotionally exhausted. That's why this lesson matters so much. Money should support life, not replace it. I've noticed something interesting about older adults who seem happiest. Most are not obsessed with impressing people anymore. They value calm mornings, meaningful conversations, good health, time, simplicity. That's real wealth. And this book captures that beautifully. Lesson has 5. Reasonable decisions beat perfect decisions. This lesson brought me a lot of comfort because many retirees carry regret. They replay mistakes endlessly. I should have invested earlier. I shouldn't have sold that stock. I shouldn't have trusted that advisor. I wasted too many years, but the book explains something important. Nobody makes perfect financial decisions consistently. Nobody. People make decisions based on the information, emotions, and circumstances they had at that moment. Life is messy. Unexpected illnesses happen. Layoffs happen. Divorces happen. Recessions happen. Children need help. Parents need care. Real life interrupts perfect financial plans all the time. This lesson especially matters for older adults carrying shame. You cannot punish yourself forever for not knowing then what you know now. That doesn't mean we avoid responsibility, but it does mean we show ourselves some grace, because survival itself takes wisdom, and many people underestimate how hard life truly is. Lesson has 6. Time is more important than timing. This lesson is especially important for retirees worried about investing too late. The book explains that long-term consistency matters more than constantly trying to predict the market perfectly. And honestly, this applies beyond investing. Good lives are built slowly. Good marriages, good friendships, good habits, good health practices. Slowly. Most meaningful things in life require patience, but modern culture trains people to expect instant results, and retirees sometimes suffer emotionally because they compare their timeline to others. Why didn't I achieve more? Why didn't I save enough? Why am I still anxious? But life is not a race, and comparison steals joy faster than almost anything else. This lesson also reminded me that it's never too late to improve your mindset. even at 65, 75. A peaceful perspective can still change your life dramatically. Lesson has 7. Money cannot solve every fear. This may be the deepest lesson in the whole book, because many people secretly believe if I just had more money, everything would finally feel okay. But life doesn't work that way. Money can reduce stress. It can create safety. It can provide comfort, but it cannot fully protect you from aging, loss, loneliness, fear, or mortality. And retirees understand this better than younger people do. At some point, you realize health matters more, relationships matter more, purpose matters more. I've met older adults with substantial wealth who were deeply lonely. And I've met retirees with modest income surrounded by love, laughter, and meaning. That contrast says a lot. This book doesn't dismiss money, but it places money in its proper position as a tool, not as the entire meaning of life. And honestly, I think many people need to hear that before retirement arrives. What this book gets right about life. One thing this book understands deeply is that human beings are emotional creatures pretending to be rational, especially with money. Most financial mistakes are not caused by lack of intelligence. They come from fear, ego, impatience, comparison, and insecurity. Older adults recognize this truth faster because life humbles everyone eventually. The book also understands something younger people often miss. There is a difference between being rich and feeling secure, a huge difference. And security often comes from smaller, quieter things: a paid-off home, a trusted spouse, good health, low stress, simple routines, strong relationships. This book also gets something else right about aging. As you grow older, your definition of success changes. In your 20s, success may look exciting. By retirement age, success often looks peaceful. That's wisdom earned through experience, not theory. Things I disagreed with or questioned. Now, to be fair, there were a few areas where I felt real life can be more complicated than the book sometimes suggests. For example, the book strongly emphasizes long-term investing and patience. And generally, I agree with that. But retirees face different realities than younger investors. A 30-year-old can recover from major market crashes with time. An 80-year-old may not have that same flexibility. So retirement planning requires more caution, more stability, and more emotional security than the book sometimes emphasizes. I also think the book occasionally underestimates how difficult life circumstances can become for ordinary people. It's easier to preach patience when someone has financial breathing room. But many retirees today are dealing with rising healthcare costs, inflation, caregiving responsibilities, and economic uncertainty. Sometimes people aren't making bad financial decisions because they lack wisdom. Sometimes they're simply trying to survive, and I think that deserves compassion. Another thing I question slightly is the idea that everyone can achieve enough financial peace through mindset alone. Mindset matters enormously, but practical realities matter too. Some retirees genuinely struggle because of limited income, health problems, or lack of support systems. So while psychology is powerful, systems and circumstances matter as well. Still, I appreciated that the book stayed thoughtful rather than judgmental. That's rare these days. How this book changed my thinking. This book changed the way I define financial success. Before reading it, I think part of me still associates success with accumulation, more savings, more assets, more achievement. But afterward, I started thinking more about emotional freedom. Can you rest peacefully? Can you enjoy ordinary days? Can you stop comparing yourself to everybody else? Can you appreciate what you already have? That's a different kind of wealth, and honestly, probably a more meaningful one. This book also reminded me not to postpone life entirely for the future. Many retirees look back wishing they worried less and lived more, not irresponsibly, just more intentionally. More dinners with family, more walks, more laughter, more presence, more living. I think retirees watching this can start doing something very important today. Stop measuring your life only by financial numbers. Measure it by peace, by relationships, by freedom, by meaning, by health, by the ability to enjoy a quiet afternoon without fear controlling your mind. That's real success. If I had to summarize the most important lessons from this book for retirees, I'd say this.
Money matters, but peace matters more. Wealth is not what people see. It's what quietly protects your freedom. Retirement without purpose can become emotionally dangerous. Comparison steals joy faster than almost anything else. Health becomes priceless after 60. Small habits shape your future more than dramatic decisions. Contentment is one of the greatest financial skills a person can develop. And perhaps most importantly, it's never too late to change how you think about money, life, and happiness. Not at 60, not at 70, not even at 80. Wisdom can still grow. Peace can still grow. Gratitude can still grow. If you've made it this far, I truly hope this conversation encouraged you in some way. And I'd genuinely love to hear from you. What lesson about money or retirement took you the longest to learn? Was there a moment in life when your definition of success changed? And are there any books that deeply changed the way you see life now? Share them in the comments.
Because one beautiful thing about getting older is this. We stop pretending we know everything and start learning from each other instead. And if you enjoy calm conversations like this about retirement, wisdom, money, purpose, and living well later in life, make sure you subscribe and join this community. There are a lot of people growing older these days, but not everyone is growing wiser. And sometimes a single lesson learned at the right moment can change the entire way a person experiences the rest of their life. Take care of yourself, protect your peace, and remember this, the richest life is not always the loudest one. Often it's the calmest.